With me now to talk about it is Alec Rowlands, senior pastor at Westgate Chapel in beautiful Edmonds, Washington, also the founder and president of Church Awakening. Alec, welcome to Washington Watch.
Thank you, Joseph. Sure is good to see you again. We miss you in the state of Washington.
Well, thank you. It is great to see you again, and I am always looking forward to my returns home. Thank you so much. Now, when you heard, what was your reaction when you heard this new guidance from Governor Inslee about churches needing to create vaccinated sections in their churches?
To be honest with you, heading down to the office yesterday, Tony, I thought about, if we had an outbreak of measles or we had an outbreak of some other disease in the congregation, we would work hard to segregate those who were sick. We would get the word out to everybody. We would do everything we could to minimize the damage to other people, but we would prefer, I guess, to do this on our own and at our own pace rather than having it dictated from Olympia. So it's a frustration to us all the way back to when our churches were closed back in the spring.
Now, he's not saying that you must do this. He's saying you must do this if you want to have your sanctuary at 50% capacity. Is that correct? Am I understanding that?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Much like a few months ago, he said you could only have one worship leader on the platform at a time, and that they want one accompanist and they must sing through a mask and the congregation may not sing, at which point we had to face really a biblical decision about whether we were going to comply or not. And I think in this instance, Joseph, our sense of things is that we're not going to let the sanctuary become a place where the concentration and the focus of people is on the restrictions, but rather on worship and the Word of God. That must be our focus. So we're not in an arrogant way, but we're not going to comply.
Well, it's an amazing world in which elected officials, allegedly public servants, are trying to dictate to churches how many people can be on their stage and what they must have over their face while they are singing to Jesus and leading others to do so. It's really kind of difficult to wrap my head around this. I know that you're a part of a network called Church Awakening. You're in relationship with a lot of other pastors. How's the church broadly in Washington State dealing with this?
I would say it's a mixed bag. A lot of pastors are feeling the pressure to comply. A lot of pastors' congregations have been significantly divided over masks or no mask, distance or no distance, and what the pastor's position might be or not be on the subject. And so there's a lot of division out here, and a lot of churches have not reopened, and what I'm hearing is pastors are resigning at an unusual rate, and churches literally closing at an unusual rate.
Which is a terrible outcome, no doubt, when you see people. But when you see people quitting their jobs, but you hear that story a lot, it seems, the discouragement, the frustration. Now, when it comes to the vaccine, we know that is also a divisive issue generally. Not everyone is going to get the vaccine because not everyone wants the vaccine. What do you think of this idea that there would be segregation, essentially, inside of a church or other organizations for those who have been vaccinated and those who haven't been vaccinated? How would that affect the community?
It makes me really nervous about how much coercion is right around the corner. So that's the issue that I have right now. It sounds like he's saying the churches can have a voluntary section, but it just concerns me about how soon he's going to make that mandatory, like everything else that we've had to face in the state of Washington.
Now, Alec, I want to go a little more broadly with you now, because the New York Times published an article in the last week or so that said white evangelical resistance is the obstacle in vaccination efforts. Now, it's true that there's a lot of the data is showing that white evangelicals are a segment of the population that are more reluctant to get the vaccine. What are you advising people? What are you telling people? What do you think? How should the church be responding to this vaccination question?
I have stayed silent from the pulpit on this issue. I'm trying to focus my comments and commentary on those things that have a clear biblical foundation. So I've not said anything. My wife and I are very reticent to take the vaccine. I had COVID about a month ago, fortunately a fairly mild case, and emerged just fine. So I'm not really a candidate for it right now, but we are very reluctant to take it. And I looked at the New York Times article, and really there's, I don't know how much you want me to comment on, but just, you know, they're saying white evangelicals have a mistrust of science. No, it's not a mistrust of science. Rita and I have been vaccinated for everything else.
Alec, I'm going to have to cut you off there because we are at a hard break. Alec Rowlands, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for all you're doing in Washington State. We look forward to having you back.